Hello folks, it's Mark here, back with another vinyl update. I think I left you about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, right before I left for Dallas for the holidays to see friends and family. Had a great time down there, beautiful 60-degree weather on average, so that was nice. But back here in Cleveland with the 35-degree temperatures that have awaited me here. But hey, still can't complain, it is December. It's to be expected this time of year. Hope everybody's having a good holiday, and hope 2019 treats everybody really well. I have made a few pickups while I was in Texas, hit a store called Josey Records while I was in Dallas, and then when I was in Fort Worth, had some downtime there, so I convinced my folks to drop me off at a place called Doc's Record and Vintage that I forgot about. I had visited there not long before I moved up here to Cleveland. I grew up in Dallas, lived there the first 43 years of my life, and moved up here in 2013. So probably around 2012, I visited Doc's Vintage Record and Vintage last, and they were in a different location at that point. So anyway, here's a run through of some of the things I picked up while I was down there. I have not listened to or cleaned to these records yet, so I'm just going to tell you what I know about them, but I don't really know too much of how these sound yet. Some of them I do, but most of them I don't. First one, Dillinger. He's one of my favorite reggae artists. He's more of a kind of a toaster. Toasts kind of raps over reggae music, and he does it over this limited 12-inch called 5-Man Army. This had been marked down. It looked like it was a record store day release. Marked down from $10 to $5. If you want to get a sense of what Dillinger's all about, check out a track called Flatfoot Hustling over there on YouTube, and you'll get a sense of what his vibe is. Black picked up this album. It'd been on my list for a long time. This is a man named Colin Verscombe. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, but during the 1980s, he released a string of independent records before getting signed by A&M and Virgin, I think over in the UK, and he released this album, Wonderful Life. And the title track from it became quite a big hit over in Britain, released a couple of times, and it actually was a hit on one of those releases. And then it did get shown over here on VH1, on MTV, or VH1 in the late 80s, but was never too big of a hit over here. A very smooth pop sound, akin to, I don't know if you remember Doublé, Captain of Her Heart, kind of that kind of a vibe, or produced by Robin Miller, who also did Sade and Everything But the Girl, so that gives you a sense of his smooth vibe. Spin. This is a band that I had another 12-inch buy, so I picked this one up, Let's Pretend, from 1991. They're a jangly English indie band, kind of in the Manchester vibe, kind of Stone Roses-ish. The guitarist later went on to join the band Gene, Britpop band group called Gene in the mid-90s. Haven't heard this yet, but I look forward to giving it a spin. Fashion. This is a band from Britain. This is their first album from, I believe, 1980. No, 79. Ooh, came out on IRS here in the US. They later, this is, I think, a lot more guitar-driven, guitar and synth. Their subsequent work, they did an album called Fabrique in 1982 that I really, really like. That's a lot more funk and synth-driven. So this catches them a little early on as a three-piece. So I look forward to giving that one a listen. B-52s never owned this album. Bouncing Off the Satellites, 1986, produced by Tony Mansfield, who had done work with Naked Eyes. He was also the singer and producer of New Music. Tony Mansfield's done a host of great records, and this is being just one of them. I've had the Summer of Love and Girl from Ipanema 12 inches from this album since they came out, but I never got around to picking this up, so glad to get a copy. A couple of 60s comps. By the way, I got all these at Doc's. So far, all these records were at Doc's Record and Vintage in Fort Worth. Picked up a Pebbles Volume 15, The Continent Strikes Back. This is the Netherlands, 65 to 68. This focuses on psychedelic garage pop from that time period. More psychedelic garage rock than pop. And then this one, it's called Darum Days, and it's all releases that were on the Darum label in the 1960s. Label over in Britain, you probably know that label from the Moody Blues. Cat Stevens records were also on Darum. So this is just a bunch of various kind of more psychedelic tinged music that came out on that label in the late 1960s. This is a collection. An Ian Dury 12-inch I never had. This one's called Really Glad You Came. Don't know it, but it was pretty cheap. I know Ian Dury, but don't know this particular track. Now on to Josey Records in Dallas. Made a few finds there. These, for $6 a pop, 2 Nina Hagen albums I never had. I found a Nina Hagen Band and then Unbehagen. Both albums, I know, I had a roommate who was a huge Nina Hagen fan, so he played these albums a lot, and so I'm quite familiar with them. If you aren't familiar with the Nina Hagen, she is a trip. Very extroverted, eccentric German singer from the late 70s and 80s, and you could probably file her in there with Lena Lovitch, maybe more whacked out Susie Sue. Just this cover kind of says it all. Herman Was His Name is a good track you can check out by her. African Reggae is another good one. Both those tracks are on this album, so check out Nina Hagen. She's a very singular, unique talent. No one quite like her. The Box. This is a band, kind of an industrial funk group from Britain from the mid-1980s. I have one of their 12 inches, Muscle In, but never had any albums by them. So looking forward to hearing this one. It's called Secrets Out. This was from 1983. And one of the members, Peter Hope, later did an album with Cabaret Voltaire's Richard Kirk on the Wax Trax label. I'm a big fan of 80s dance 12-inch singles, especially synth pop and just disco and electro. So anytime I see some interesting looking 12 inches from that era, and they're cheap enough, you know, $1 each or a couple bucks each, I'll pick them up. So here's just a few. I pick these up a lot and don't always show them because I don't know how much interest there is in these. But this one from Quadrant 6, I don't know it, but they had an excellent dance track called Body Mechanic. And this is another one called The Lone Wolf. Don't know it, but it's a great early 80s New York electro kind of sound. Taffy, she had a hit in the mid-1980s over in Britain with I Love My Radio, My Midnight Radio. You can see the 12-inch here. Obviously, she released another one, which you can see the sleeve of here. This one, called Once More. I don't know it, but soon I will. And then this one on Invasion Records by Daniela. Don't know it, but it's called So Hot, Amigos House Version. That's that. And then I'm a huge fan of the System duo, kind of a synth pop R&B duo from the mid-1980s. If you like Scritti Politti, mid-80s Scritti Politti, like Perfect Way, check out the System. They had a hit over here, pretty big hit with Don't Disturb This Groove, and then also they're the original people who did You Were In My System, which Robert Palmer covered later on. This one called Midnight Special. I don't know it. Again, I soon will. And then a few LPs. Bang Bang Machine. This is kind of a gothy, I don't know how to describe them, kind of a gothy indie guitar band from the early 1990s over in Britain. And the guitarist Steve Eagles was a member of an early 80s English group called The Photos, who were very Blondie-esque. I don't have this album, don't know it, so I look forward to giving it a spin. It comes from, what year did this come out? 94. And then Emmett Rhodes, I'm a huge fan of this guy. I have 2 other albums by him, but never did have this one, An American Dream. He's used to be in a 60s group called the Merry-Go-Round, who did a lot of good jangly 60s-esque pop. And then he went solo and did a lot of, I don't know, I think you could compare him to maybe Paul McCartney a little bit, if you're a fan of him. Check out Emmett Rhodes. He came back after a long hiatus and did an album a couple years ago, and I'm curious to hear that. A couple more 12 inches, Slack by Slack. This is great New York electro on the wonderful Streetwise label. I'll pick up pretty much anything I see on this label. UK Players is a funk band I've been looking for Seth by for a long time. Early 80s UK funk band along the lines of Level 42. Maybe like their earlier funky material, pre-Something About You. This one's called Midnight. Modern Romance, I Musi, kind of Latin-tinged disco pop. This was actually a huge hit over in the UK. Grapes of Wrath. This is a Canadian college rock band, not too unlike REM, maybe. This is an album they did in 1986, I believe. I remember when this came out. Yeah, 86. I remember seeing this around, didn't know what it was, and then the album they did after this, MTV played a video from Do You Want to Tell Me, and I really, really loved it. So found this for a good price. I thought I'd check it out. Grapes of Wrath. Honey Buzzards. This is, I don't know anything about them, but they are on the Sheer Joy label, which is a Manchester label from over in the UK. Early 1990s, a group called the Paris Angels were on this label, and just released a lot of good indie dance, jangly guitar kind of stuff. So I expect this will be kind of along those lines, maybe akin to the Charlatans, hoping. All right, so that's what I got there. Now here's just a few other albums that I picked up just recently. Either I got them in the mail or I got them just at various stores around here in Cleveland. Here's three that I got in the mail. Simon Topping, he used to be in A Certain Ratio, and he struck out on his own in 1985 and did this 12-inch called Prospect Park. Already spun this, love it. It's very Brazilian, bossa nova, Latin jazz kind of sound. Found this one, Asylum Party. This is I believe it's a French goth band from the 1980s. Very much like The Cure, or Sad Lovers and Giants, or, you know, just that 80s goth sound. This is an album they did called Borderline. Loved it. Played it last night. Very moody. If you're a fan of The Cure's Disintegration, probably like Asylum Party. But look for their stuff and jump on it quick. Their records go for a lot of money. Got this one from Amoeba online. And then this one I'd been after a while. Synth duo from the early 80s, Eddie and Sunshine, Eddie Malov and Sunshine Patterson. I have like 5 or 6 of their singles. Never had their album, Perfect Stranger. It's kind of like new wave synth pop cabaret music. So, Eddie and Sunshine. This came from 1983. Don't know this album, but I know the band, Spherical Objects. This is a Manchester post-punk band from the late 70s, very early 80s. And this is an album called No Man's Land. Looking forward to giving this one a spin. Don't know the year on it, but I'm going to suspect 1980 or 81. And then this one. This one, Never Mind the Bullocks. I never had a copy. Never, all these years. I've had the singles. Never had a copy of this album because everyone I knew did. So I never felt like I needed to buy it. But a friend of mine that I go to shows with has this on in his car a lot. And every time it comes on, I'm like, next time you see this album, pick it up for a good price. So I found a good used copy of a reissue of this, and it was $12. So I thought, now is the time to get Nevermind the Bullocks. No, it's one of those albums I feel like I should have owned way ages ago. And then kind of filling in my Sparks album collection. This is one I just picked up today, pulling rabbits out of a hat. I do remember when this came out, but I just never picked it up. So found it for a good price today. I'm a huge Sparks fan, so trying to kind of fill in all the holes I have in my Sparks collection. This one looks interesting. Star Drive from, no, it's called Intergalactic Trot, Star Drive with Robert Mason. I don't know anything about it, except it's synth versions from, it's synth versions of other songs that came out in 1973 on Elektra. And there's a version of Strawberry Fields Forever. That kind of tipped the scale for me. I wanted to hear a 70s synth version of Strawberry Fields Forever. Just got this today, so I have no idea what it sounds like. And these other two I got today as well. Matthew Sweet, his first album called Inside. Now, this came out in 1987, or maybe 86, and MTV 120 Minutes played the song Save Time for Me, which I really, really liked. Very synthy, very glossy sounding. Many people don't like it. Matthew Sweet, I don't even think likes it, because it was just too glossed over. He did this album, Inside, and then another one called Earth for Columbia in the late 80s. Got dropped or left the label, I'm not sure what happened. Came back, of course, in the early 90s with the album Girlfriend, and his career just took off. And I've been a fan of his, you know, pretty much the whole way through. But never did pick this album up, so I've been curious. I loved the song Save Time for Me, but I was curious to hear how the rest of the album sounded, and I found it for a pretty decent price. So there you go, Matthew Sweet. Let's hear how that is. And then here's another album I feel like I should have owned a long time ago, marked down to $13, a reissue of Iggy Pop's New Values. It's got I'm Bored, I'm the Chairman of the Board on here. That's a classic song. And then I'm trying to think if 5 Foot One. 5 Foot One's the other song I know from it. The rest of it, I don't know. So I'm looking forward to acquainting myself with Iggy Pop's New Values. Big fan of his. And we are at 14 minutes. I think I'm going to spin through just a couple 45s I picked up also while on vacation. I'll show these off real quick. See this one from Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels called Breakout. I love Devil in a Blue Dress, but I don't know much else by him. So this is a good opportunity to find out more what he's about. These are records I found over at Doc's Record and Vintage, so I'll kind of put those in a stack here. Voice Farm, I think a California-based synth pop group from the early 1980s. This is one they did called Double Garage. Looking forward to hearing that. Doctor and the Medics, you might know them from Spirit in the Sky, their cover from the 1980s. English guitar pop band. This is their version of Hi Ho Silver Lining. Wang Chung, you know the 80s group? Well, they used to be called Huang Chung, and this is a single they did before Dance Hall days called, what is it called? Hold Back the Tears. Curious to hear that one. Here's a kind of a pre-Britpop band, post shoegaze group called Sweet Jesus. They're kind of more of a glamish UK band from the early 1990s. This is one called Phone Freak Honey. The Gorgeous, I don't know much about them, but this is a single called, what's it called? All the Love in the World. So curious to hear that one. The Models, Australian group called The Models. They had a couple hits over here with Cold Fever and Out of Sight, Out of Mind. Well, this is an earlier single. No, this one goes from around that same time, 1987. This is called Oh Darling. Curious to hear that. Merton Parkas. This is kind of a ska-based band from the late 1970s from the UK. Single called Plastic Smile. And the keyboardist, I believe it's right here, Mick Talbot, later turned up as one half of the Style Council with Paul Weller. Then here's something I don't know. It's on Polydor from 1981, which is always a good sign. This is Marvin the Paranoid Android, and it's called Marvin. Who knows? It was like $3, so I had to snag it. And then here's a score. Huge fan of Adrian Borland and The Sound, a fantastic post-punk band from the early 1980s. Their first 3 albums are phenomenal. They're called, what are they called? Jeopardy. And the second one from the Lion's Mouth, third one, All Fall Down. I even like the fourth one, Shock of Daylight. And the fifth one, Heads and Hearts. They're all good. Get them all. But this is the one single I was missing by them, Heyday. And it comes from the first album, Jeopardy, on the Corova label. And the B-side, I don't know, Brute Force. So I'm really looking forward to getting this. Almost pulled the trigger on Discogs, getting this a few times, but found a copy for $5 in Fort Worth. Snag. And then there's just a couple more here. These I got at a local flea market here in Cleveland. Went ahead and picked them up. The Acrylics. Love the sleeve. This is a UK band from the early 1980s featuring Roland Gift, who later was the singer of Fine Young Cannibals. They were more of a ska band. I think they did a couple of singles over in the UK. The Acrylics, and this is how they spell their name, the Acrylics. Cold Turkey, found that single from John Lennon, had to get it. Excerpt from a Teenage Opera by Keith West. He was the singer in the UK psych band Tomorrow, along with Steve Howe, before he joined Yes. Single he released called Excerpt from a Teenage Opera, otherwise known as Grocer Jack. This is a big hit in the UK. Didn't even know there was a US release on it. Chris Spedding, he's played guitar for the likes of David Bowie before. And this is a single he did called Gunfight. Curious to hear that. What else here? This is something on Rough Trade. I don't know what it is. Let's see what it is. Dr. Mix. Yeah, Dr. Mix. Don't ask me what it is, but it's on Rough Trade from the late 1970s, I believe. Yes, 79 on Rough Trade. That's all I need to know. I'll pick it up. And then a couple more. The Human Switchboard. This is an act out of Akron. And this is a single called I Gotta Know. New wave stuff from the late 1970s, I want to say. Let's see. 78. Boom, Human Switchboard. And this is from Nick Knox's record collection. Nick Knox, well, sadly passed away, but he was the drummer of the Cramps. So this comes from his collection. Kind of cool, huh? And then this is also from his collection, but I don't know anything about Bobby Henry. I don't know, it's on A&M from the late 70s. It looked like it might be some fun new waves, so we'll give it a try. There you go. That's all the stuff I picked up while in Dallas and Fort Worth and here recently. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody got, you know, some nice rest and relaxation over the holidays. And if you didn't, hope you're going to get some soon. Anyway, it's Mark signing off. Hope you all have a great 2019, and I will see you guys very, very shortly in that year with some more pickups and all-time favorites. Who knows what I'll bring up next? Just have to wait and see. Talk to you soon.